As Trump weighs whether to resume his war on Iran, are Mujtaba Khamenei's loyal proxy fighters already moving first, forcing the US to confront a new terror threat far from the Gulf? Is an Iran-backed Iraqi militia commander now at the center of a shocking US terror case, accused of planning attacks on Western soil while Washington was focused on missiles and drones? Have the same secret Europe-based networks that hit targets in London and Brussels now started quietly eyeing synagogues and Jewish centers inside the United States? Has Trump's Iran war, sold as a way to restore deterrence, instead helped spawn a terror plot aimed at New York Jews, forcing his own security services to scramble at home? And with an Iran-backed militia boss accused of hunting Americans and Jews worldwide, how far is Tehran's shadow war now stretching into cities that thought they were far from the front? From a detention in Turkey to a courtroom in Manhattan, how did one of Iran's proxy commanders end up facing US justice just as the region braces for another round of strikes? Amid the fallout of the Iran war, US authorities now claim that a Tehran-backed Iraqi militia was actively plotting attacks in New York City and beyond. According to the New York Times, US prosecutors have charged an Iran-backed militia commander in connection with an alleged terror plot targeting multiple Western countries. Prosecutors say Mohammad al-Saadi was involved in planning coordinated attacks in the United States, Europe, and Canada, turning a regional conflict into a transcontinental security threat. The complaint alleges that after the Iran war began, al-Saadi explicitly focused on Americans and Jews as priority targets for his network. Reports indicate the Iraqi commander was first detained in Turkey, before being transferred into US custody to face charges. Prosecutors identify al-Saadi as a commander within Kataib Hezbollah, an Iraqi militia long tied to Iran's security apparatus and regional operations. Kataib Hezbollah is described in the documents as a proxy of Iran's Quds force, the external operations arm of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The case is now fueling fears of Iran-linked retaliation operations on Western soil, far from the usual battlefields of Iraq, Syria, and the Gulf. The complaint links al-Saadi to Harakat Ashab al-Yamin al-Islamiyya, a newly surfaced and shadowy group whose name only appeared after the war began. US investigators allege that Ashab al-Yamin is in reality a front organization for existing Kataib Hezbollah networks operating under a fresh brand. The New York Times reports that the group activated low-cost cells across Europe almost overnight once the Iran war started, using cheaply assembled teams and basic tools. Officials point to logo similarities, shared messaging and closely coordinated timing to argue that the supposed new group and older militias are effectively the same network. The organization claimed responsibility for attacks in London, Belgium, and the Netherlands, while carefully avoiding any public admission of ties to Iran-linked groups. The complaint cites recorded calls in which al-Saadi allegedly boasted about running multiple teams for operations across different countries. In those communications, al-Saadi is said to have sought help to prepare attacks in the US and Canada, focusing specifically on Jewish synagogues as targets. Al-Saadi allegedly looked for operatives willing to strike in America and Canada, focusing on symbolic Jewish and civic sites. According to FBI sources, investigators recorded calls in which synagogue attacks were discussed explicitly as potential options. An undercover officer posed as a cartel-linked operative during the contact phase, giving investigators a window into how the network tried to outsource parts of the operation. Maps and photographs of a Manhattan synagogue were reportedly transmitted, suggesting that concrete reconnaissance work was already underway. Jewish centers in Los Angeles and Scottsdale were also identified in the discussions as possible future targets for similar attacks. Before the planned operation, a payment of about $3,000 in cryptocurrency was allegedly sent as an advance to move preparations forward. The complaint says the operation was ordered to happen today on April 6, indicating how close the plot may have come to activation. A visible police presence near the targeted synagogue ultimately disrupted the planned operation and helped prevent an actual attack. This case emerges against a backdrop of US fears that Iran or its proxies would attempt retaliation abroad once the February war began. American and Israeli forces have already hit Iranian leaders, bases, and infrastructure across the region, increasing the incentive for Tehran's allies to respond asymmetrically. Officials say they have long expected attempts at proxy terrorism far from the Middle Eastern front lines, including Europe and North America. The FBI complaint states that al-Saadi previously worked closely with Quds Force Chief Qasem Soleimani, embedding him deep inside Iran's regional ecosystem. Soleimani and Kataib Hezbollah leader Abu Mahdi al-Mohandis were both killed in a US drone strike in 2020 near Baghdad airport, a turning point in the militia's relationship with Washington. Al-Saadi is described as one of the highest-ranking Iran-linked figures to be arrested since the latest fighting with Tehran and its allies began. Strikingly, the case lands just as Donald Trump is weighing whether to authorize renewed strikes on Iran's leadership, adding domestic terror fears to his already volatile Iran calculus.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.